I've had a keen interest in the supernatural ever since I was 7 years old, and that door in our house that slammed itself shut back in 1990 was my first scary encounter. Yes, I know, there are far more frightening occurrences in the world than that. And ever since then, I've had several other experiences, some similar and some that were pretty intense. I don't know why I'm so unlucky, but the paranormal has followed me into pretty much every house I've ever lived in, and every place I've worked at. Our current place of residence is no exception. A small 2-bedroom apartment is what we call home. My wife, myself, and our 2 kids, Nick and Candace, have been living happily for about 5 years. It's close to their school, close to where we work, close to both my parents and my in-laws, and close to a shopping mall. From time to time, we've heard some strange sounds in our home, mostly at night, but nothing that truly convinced us that it was the supernatural. Because of the size of our place, it's fairly easy to pick up sounds and little noises from many of the rooms, and we would usually find a rational explanation for them. It's probably the wind that blew over that container on the kitchen counter, or the batteries in that toy are old, so it's probably why it started playing by itself. But we never actually got up to investigate. I think deep down, and not wanting to admit it to each other, my wife and I feared that we might walk in on something we didn't really want to see. Nick never slept right through, and, like clockwork, would walk into our room at about 22:30 every night and climb into our bed. If we happened to be awake at that time, my wife would take him back to his own bed. But often we were fast asleep and would wake up the next morning with him snuggled in between us. One Sunday morning, we woke up with the little guy in our bed, and while drinking coffee, he asked us, "Who visited last night?" "You were with us. You know that no one visited last night," we laughed. "No," he said. "Last night when I walked into your room, there was a lady in your room, standing by Daddy's closet." My wife and I looked at each other, and I knew that she believed him, and she could tell that I did too. When I was 11, my then babysitter told my mom that she had a conversation with an old man who was sitting on her bed. Not certain why she'd have an elderly man as an imaginary friend, my mom decided to take my sister to a child psychologist, who, to my mom's horror, told her that kids do not lie about these things, and that he truly believed her. My mom never went into my sister's room by herself after that. So, we kind of played the whole thing down and changed the subject every time Nick would ask about our visitor. About 2 weeks later, the incident was forgotten. One morning, we woke up, Nick still sleeping between us, and just lay there talking about random things when Candace walked into our room and kissed us as she normally did after getting up in the mornings. We invited her to lie down with us, but as it was Saturday, and we were in no rush to get up and start the day, but she wanted to go watch the kids' shows on the television in the lounge. She walked out the room with her cheery voice, and we heard her greet someone, "Hello," and she gave a cute little chuckle. Again, my wife and I just looked at each other, wide-eyed, and called Candace back to our room. "Who did you greet in the lounge just now?" I asked her with a smile. "The old lady, Daddy," came her reply. I got up and walked to the lounge, and obviously saw no one. So without making further ado, I switched the television on, and she watched her favorite shows. Again, we didn't make mention or further ask questions about the lady, as my kids didn't know about such things as ghosts. And as far as they were concerned, the only supernatural being that came to our house was the Sandman. Months passed without any sightings or talk of the lady, except jokingly between my wife and I, usually after the kids were asleep, and she had gone to make us coffee, which we would drink while watching movies in bed. "Say hi to the old lady for me on your way back," would normally get my wife running back to the room and earn me a smack from her on my shoulder. Little did I know that the joking was going to catch up with me eventually. Candace talked in her sleep a lot, and we would sit at the bed many nights listening to her mumbling, trying to make out what she was saying and wondering what she was dreaming about. One particular summer's night, I woke up and heard Candace talking up a storm, but at the same time, I could hear what sounded like a soft voice singing. Our bedroom window was open during the hot nights, so I dismissed the sounds coming from the outside and rolled over and fell asleep again. This started happening more frequently though, at least every third night, and every time I got up from my bed and would start walking to the kids' room, Candace would stop her talking and the singing would disappear before I could get to their door. I'd stand there in silence and wait for a sound, but nothing would happen. Again. I thought it must have been sounds from the outside, because as I walked out of my room, the singing would stop. It made sense to me. The next couple of days, we had unusually chilly weather, so we closed our bedroom windows at night, and guess what? I didn't hear that singing. I was relieved, but it didn't last too long. On one of those cold nights, I was lying in bed while the rest of my household was asleep, thinking of everything from work to what we would eat the next evening. Candace starts mumbling, but after a couple of seconds, it starts to sound like she's having a terrible nightmare. The soft mumbling becomes much louder, and I could hear that she's very scared. Just then, the soft singing started too. I got up slowly and quietly, made my way out of our bedroom. Each step I took towards the kids' room made my heart beat a little faster as the singing kept growing louder and louder, clearer and clearer. Where, in the past, it just started disappearing as I neared their room. Standing right outside the kids' door, I heard Candace's mumbling dying down, but the soft singing, clearly a woman's voice, continued. Chills sprinted up and down my spine. My legs started feeling like they do when you run away from someone in a dream, like jelly, while I could still feel the cold beads of sweat dripping down my side. My mouth went dry, instantly, as I listened to this sweet-sounding lullaby, one which I've never heard before, and will probably never forget. Blacks and bays, dapples and grays, go to sleep, little baby. I knew I had to confront whoever or whatever it was in the room with my kids. So I took a breath and slowly started pushing the door open. When you wake, you shall have... The singing stopped abruptly as I peeked around the door. She just sat there on my daughter's bed, arms folded in her lap and her head turned towards me. We just looked at each other. I wanted to, but I couldn't get my eyes off of her. Then she just carried on singing softly, All the Pretty Little Horses. My wife said she found me lying in the kids' doorway and helped me back to bed. Apparently I was ice cold, but sweating a lot. I myself can't remember what happened after those last few words she sang. I must have blacked out. But the strange thing is that my kids have been sleeping very well since that night. I wish I could say the same for myself.